Well, let me add to this too, and this is, and for the people out there listening that probably like this is the first time they've ever heard of this information. This is the first time I've heard of some of this. Some of it I am familiar with it, but when you talk about Rh negative and Rh positive blood, so I just want to just clarify this that this is not a racial thing. This is about a specific bloodline. So you can have a person that's melanated that's Rh negative, just like you can have a person who has a lack of melanin that can be Rh negative.
Truth.
All right, so now
Fact.
there's a shot called the RHoGAM shot, and it's an injection that prevents Rh incompatibility, meaning that during pregnancy, if the mother is Rh negative and the father is Rh positive, in order to keep the mother from producing antibodies that would attack the child's red blood cells, that child, in order to keep the child from being born stillborn or not to full term, they have to give this mother a shot in order to allow her to carry the child full term. Because, like you were saying, WI, you have someone that is of man's bloodline, Rh positive, who is intermingling with someone who is Rh negative, and those two species are not compatible. So, in order for that child, for them to be able to bring forth life, they have to have this shot interjected into the mother's DNA to keep the mother's body from rejecting the child. Does that make sense? And
Hundred
that's a
percent.
real thing. I had no idea that this actually existed. And it
Yeah,
says
Hell
that the
yeah.
shot contains a small
Yeah,
amount of
yeah,
Rh positive proteins
yeah,
and a type of antibody called immune globulin that
yeah.
stops the mother's body from making antibodies that attack the baby's red blood cells.
Yeah,
So this
those are
keeps
those
them.
those are
Go ahead.
ethical implications that are the controversial issues of today. Uh, when it comes to those levels of treatment of Rh negative, whether or not it's ethically, then there are also some issues of medical care as it relates to discrimination for those that should take the treatment because of the high risk in pregnancy, and that leads into legal matters, right? So, um, in today's situation, as we deal with Rh negative, we're dealing with designer babies, uh, where you're dealing with that level of it. You're dealing with the ethicals and the legal part of it. Um, I just wanted to interject that because that touched me when I did my research as it related to today. And since you mentioned that, knowledge, but I'm gonna yield back.
let me
And so
bust it
I
down.
guess I'm trying to understand is that if you have a Rh positive person and a Rh negative person, and they try to have a child without this shot, according to science, the child's not going to survive.
Right, right. Let me
That's
bust
the
it
way I'm
down for
reading
you.
this.
Let me bust it
You're
down for you
absolutely
on
right. You're absolutely right, E.
Go ahead,
Can y'all
Dawiyat.
hear me? I'm gonna
Yeah.
bust it down for you on a natural level, right? Watch this, right? I studied this in nature, right? If you look at nature, you have albino monkeys, you have albino alligators, albino tigers, albino lions, all of these things that are out in nature, right? And what does nature do? Have you studied this? This is important because we're talking about nature.
Adapts.
Every single time this albino monkey is let out in nature among regular apes and monkeys, whatever his species is, they kill him, attack him, and destroy him and eliminate him from the earth, right? Why? Because he bears the mark, right? Same thing with the water kingdom, with the alligators. There's albino alligators that they and crocs that they attack and they eliminate, right? So here we are, we're talking about genetics, which is really nature. When a woman is a Rh positive, right, and she does not do this treatment, her body naturally is going to eliminate the foreign gene. It is not of nature. You understand? So here we go. This is prevalent everywhere these guys sit on the throne. They have full medical care, full coverage, and they are tampering with genes, tampering with genetics. This is where you get the word German from. They're tampering and germinating everywhere they go. You dig? So your genes are naturally made that way. This is no different than your what is it? Your white blood cells attacking the foreign things in your body. You understand what I'm saying? This is the same thing. Everything that is foreign, nature will eliminate it. You don't even have to do anything. It's going to do it naturally. You understand what I'm saying? This is what.
Let me ask you a question. When you say, I have a question. When you say blood drinkers, do you mean maybe somebody, because they like rare meat, they like the meat medium rare? Is that what you're talking about? Or they actually blood rituals that we see going on, and that we hear about, these conspiracy theories and things like that? Are you referring to that?
When I read the forgive me, brother, I got to go back to the scripture every time, right? When I read the book of Revelation 17 and 5, and it says that they are drunk off the blood of the saints, right? I was always taught that was like a spiritual connotation, right? Until I began doing the research on the culture I was raised, right? I was raised in a culture where we consider blood donations as a heroic act of the noblest, highest honor if you want to give blood, right? I was taught that if you let these genetic mutations thrive among mankind, like the hermaphrodites. There's another genetic trait that we didn't mention earlier. You got hermaphrodites. These are people that are born with both sexual organs, right? You got all of these different things that literally are foreign, and they don't come from this world. So I call them the blood drinkers because that's literally their diet. You know what I mean? When the scriptures say that they couldn't sustain the giants, so giants devoured mankind, right? Which means they wasn't serving their gods correctly. They wasn't serving them good enough. So they got devoured, meaning they got literally consumed because they have this, when you read the Remembrance of Enoch, it tells you they lack the two spirits out of the four spirits that the Most High gave to all creation. Meaning you have good reptilians, right, that are angelic beings, and you have bad reptilians that are trying to rule the world today that we call Amorites. You dig what I'm saying?
They basically lack iron.
And there you go, right? If you look at every nation where they are the dominant society, you're always going to find those iron deficiencies in the people. This is high in America, this is high in Israel, high in Europe. Most nations where they rule, people eat their diet. Like you said, medium rare steaks, meat, bread, cheese, and potatoes, right? If you're from America, you know what I mean when I say meat, bread, cheese, and potatoes, right? That's their diet. Starch,
blood products,
carbs, and blood. Literally. That's their, and some of y'all still got this diet. That's why y'all don't want to say that, but it's true.
Well, that diet, diet was taught. Get out of here. And I say that because when we were here, what I learned about the RH negative and those that rule, that they implemented everyone with that diet to be like them. I don't know why. I mean, I know why, but I'm just, that's what I'll do.
Well, I mean, their whole aim is to basically to destroy our DNA, right? To make us like them, right? To bring us as far from the Most High as possible.
That's right.
I mean, you just have to look at everything they do, right? They eat pork, they eat seafood, and they tell us eat pork, it's good, right? We know it's not good because the Bible tells us that.
Right. Fleshing
and now, now it's getting. You see that the bigger the planet let's say the bigger the population becomes, right, is the more tricks they use to get us to do what they want. Right. But when the population becomes too much, then they have a problem. They can't control. There's no control. Right. So they have to do a reset. This is not the first reset they've done. They've done it throughout the years. Right. World War I, World War II.
Agreed.
Also a reset.
Agreed. Tartaria. Agreed.
Tartaria was a massive. It was so good. They covered it up so good. You can't even find where you know you can see it, but you can't find the information.
You're right.
You know what I like to know, brothers, is how the Anunnakians play a part in all of this.
And the Anunnakis is what we're talking about. It's the same thing. It's just their name.
Yeah, it's the same thing. They just have different names. Right.
So
like
explain Anunnakians so that people understand, because relative to what we're talking about, we want to make sure that folks can correlate, right?
Right. Well, when you go to Sumeria, right? Sumeria is basically where their kingdom started. That's where they were at first. And Sumeria goes all the way from what we call the river Euphrates and the Tigris all the way to what we call India. This is where you get the term Indo-European, right? This is where they were first, right? And to go back, not first, but this is where their first world empire was, right? When you go back to what the brother was saying about blood drinking, right? They got some scriptures, man, and we all know about it. We all love it, you know? But we got to call a spade a spade. They got some scriptures known as the Kama Sutra over there. Me and Free was talking about it. So we call them the blood drinkers, right? Why? Because all of this what we call oral sex and all that, that's actually a form of blood drinking, right?
It is.
And nowadays, in 2024, it's evolved to everybody talking about eating booty now. You know, that's another form of blood drinking. You know, you eat in the feces and things like that. And even though it's been documented that you can catch cancer from all this oral stuff everybody doing, and you can literally die from eating feces. You can literally die from that, literally, right? But nevertheless, like you said, Delroy, that's their culture. They need the world to practice their culture and their blood drinking diet so that they can have pure service, not partial.
I don't want to steer the topic. I don't want to steer the topic a little bit, but when you mention that, right, you kind of look at the behavior of ladies who choose to be with another lady, and the behavior, their personalities. The lady today is totally different from the lady from whence when we were growing up, right? And in the 80s and 70s and 80s, so it might be because of the oral sex, right?
Well, I mean, we're looking at the tip of the iceberg, right? They want to spit in the face of the Most High, right? And we ain't even talking about the rituals that they literally do to stay in power. Number one, to stay in power. Number two, to keep alive. We ain't even touched on that yet, right? We know that they do it, but we're not talking about it. And child sacrifice, right, is the way they use to spit in the face of the Most High, right? What is the most innocent gift the Most High has given to us? Our children, right? The most vulnerable, innocent, the most vulnerable being on the earth is a child, right? And so when they do their child sacrifice, right, they're spitting in the face of the Most High, right? Now, I ain't even going to go into it because I've heard how they do it and what they do, right? And this is where they want to lead us. They want to lead us so they have their way, and these things become natural to us, right? And not that we are part of it. We should be willing to offer up our firstborn child to them so that they can do their thing and stay in power,
Well, that's what the draft is all about.
This is Moloch.
That's what the draft was all about. I mean, not the draft, but the basically, if the draft basically said we'll take your first child, or if you didn't have a child, then we won't take them.
Yeah,
but
they
if you got two,
say they take them and they sacrifice them in the army. I'm talking about that's their spiritual sacrifice, right? But there is a literal physical sacrifice.
Yeah.
Right. And this is a physical sacrifice where they basically have sex with a child that's months old or years old. I mean, you can go back in history. You can go back as far as first or second dynasty Egypt, and you'll find it being done. The Bible talks about it.
Yeah.
Right. The amount of Hebrew children that were crucified for one Egyptian. Right. Yeah. And all it's all related. Right.
Yes,
the problem is we're always told, oh, this happened and this happened and this happened. No, it didn't. It all happened at the same time. It's all related. Right. But we're under a spell. We don't see it.